Hansen with another phenomenal podcast for you today. We got a great guest we're going to bring in. I'm going to let him introduce himself to all of you. But gang, what a spectacular morning of rockfish fishing with Justin. We had up to 87 people watching that live this morning. So I want to thank all of you. It was because of all of you that without you, we don't get any views. So thank you all for watching the show this morning. We're going to go back live with Fishing at Catalina this afternoon after we're done with our podcast. But today is Promar Ahi USA Tuesday. We always talk about Promar products. And gang, if you've been watching the show this morning, Justin had a couple of nice cow cod, and he had to put them back down with those descending units that Promar's made, and they work perfect. They just had to find a whole bunch of weight to get those cow cod back down to the bottom. But you guys want to check out that Promar descending device that they made here? I'll show it to you right here on the screen. You get a pack of these, 2 in the pack for $13.99. And you have to have them. It's the law now in California. You have to have a descending device hooked up to a rod, ready to go when you're rockfish fishing. So you want to make sure you get these. We had one of our members the other day. I talked about it on the podcast. He actually got the ticket for not having the descending device. He was out on the 14-mile bank. He got the ticket for not having the descending device on the boat. So make sure you get one. We'll put the QR code up for Promar. You save 10%, so they're going to cost you less than $13.99. You get 2 of them in the pack. Yeah, it's the phenomenal thing to have on the boat. Small, doesn't take up a lot of room, very easy to use. Everything self-explained, plus Justin showing you all day, every day out on the water fishing on his live shows and showing you how to use the descending device. So it should be very, very easy for you guys to get them. And you absolutely do not want to get caught without that descending device on your boat. That's a horrible ticket. That's an easy ticket too. And the Fish and Wildlife have no problem writing that ticket. So make sure you don't get caught with that. Grab the QR code that I just threw up on the screen and go over to Promar and order those up. And you won't be disappointed. I've never heard anybody go, gosh, I wish I didn't have 2 of those because I just dropped one over the side. That's why they put 2 in the pack, gang. So check it out. Go to PromarAhiUSA.com. Use the code YSWG, the number 22, or you can simply use the QR code up on the screen, and you can go over to Promar and get all kinds of phenomenal products, plus the descending device. But hey, without any further ado, let's bring in our guest, introduce him to all of you. This guy has a podcast. He said he's going to bring me on the podcast. I am excited about that because, I love to talk. But hey, let's bring him in here. Let's see what's going on. Hey, welcome to the show.
How are you, Dave? How are we doing?
I'm phenomenal. I'm excited to have you here. I've learned a lot about you in just a little bit of time we talked, things I didn't even know. And introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know how you got into this fishing thing. You're taking it to a different level. We're looking at it in the younger generation, like my deckhand Chase Jamiro and Mike Maddox. You're coming from that world where I'm an old sucker. I mean, I'm an old guy. Let's face it. Everything's passed me by now. But Drew, you're on the cutting edge of the inside, the younger generation, this fishing thing. You got the bug. You're into it. How did you get into fishing?
Yeah, like a lot of people, I kind of did some trout stuff with my grandparents. We did some trips out to Utah. It was great. Fished up in Mammoth, did the Owens. And what really was the turning point for me was my dad took me on the Dana Pride when I was about 10 years old, right? And my dad doesn't fish. He likes to hang out. He's the, breakfast burrito, cheeseburger, a couple Diet Cokes. He's having a great day. He'd sit on the top deck and watch me, fish my heart out. And man, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's all I wanted to do was go fishing. I would bug him, come on, let's go. And man, the progression from there has been crazy. I never thought that fishing would be such a big part of my life. Now it's what I do for a living, with boats and everything like that. And, going from the Dana Pride to there, it's cool. And I love going down to Dana Point Harbor. I'm going to come down to your event tomorrow and go check out the boats. It's been a long time since I've been down there.
It's going to feel good to go back in time and see where you grew up. Because gang, what Drew's talking about is tomorrow is Don Hansen Day at Dana Point Harbor. So we got boats running 3/4 day and half day. It's 50% off, everybody. And from everybody that I'm talking to, there's going to be a lot of people coming just to celebrate the life of my father. The fishes are an added extra bonus. And so half day and 3/4 day are 50% off. And you can buy a book of coupons up to 10 for 40% off any future trips coming up half day or 3/4 day out of Dana Point. And then we have a big party tomorrow night. You get to meet all the captains, open house on one of the boats Drew was talking about. You guys come down, tour the Dana Pride, the Some Fun, the Real Fun, the Clemente, and then the Whale Watch boats. You can check everything else down there, Dana Wharf, sport fishing wise, and then in Don Hansen Plaza between John's Fish Market and Dana Wharf Sport Fishing, we're going to have Shayla's going to be there serving up 2-for-1 tacos. I'll be there. My brother will be there. My sister will be there. We'll be shaking hands and kissing babies. Come down and see us. And thanks, Drew, for talking about it, because it's going to be a big day. I flew all the way up from Cabo just to hang out. I was going to do this show with Drew at my house in Cabo, and then Don Hansen Day came up. So here we are. We're in Al Clower's garage doing the podcast with Drew. And how cool is it to lead in, Drew? Thank you for that. Dana Pride.
Of course.
Best
cheeseburger on a sport boat. I'll tell you what, it's a good time.
Absolutely.
But, really after doing half days and 3/4 days, once I really had that bug, a neighbor of mine growing up was Captain Ben Alexander, and we ended up running Natalie Ann Sport Fishing. But when I was about 12 years old, he took me on my first offshore trip, right? And this is the old way of doing it. It's not like offshore fishing now. We left Shelter Island at like 2 a.m. We motored all night through the Coronados all the way down. And, we caught an albacore on the troll. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I'm back there changing lures, and, they're all firefighters. So I felt really lucky to be a part of that. And I loved it. We stopped on a kelp patty. I caught my first yellowtails, 12 inches long, but I thought it was a trophy, still do. I was wearing I have an old photo where I'm wearing 2 life jackets and a knitted hat. My parents were crazy for letting me go with them, but I'm really glad they did, because it really opened my eyes up to an industry that's great. And I think it's great for kids too. Like fishing really kept me out of trouble. And it was a great path, and there's a lot of opportunity. If it is something you want to do, there's a lot of opportunity for young people to get involved with. And shortly after that, we started doing trips down to Baja. I remember my first trip to San Quintin, and I was like, Baja is my favorite place in the world. You know what I mean? I thought, how cool is this? You can drive, 6 hours from home and go out to these high spots and catch a bunch of yellowtail, and the fishing was just so much better. But it was the adventure of going. So when I finally got my own boat, I had an aluminum boat. I've had kayaks, float tubes. But right as I was in high school, maybe 16 years old, I just got my license. I got that 14-foot aluminum boat, and we would just go to Long Beach, go fish the breakwall. We were fishing Newport Harbor till 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember calling my dad. I got a flat tire at 3 o'clock in the morning on Jamboree heading home. And the tire was so hard to find, we ended up having to rent a U-Haul the next day. We abandoned the boat, rented a U-Haul, and put the whole boat and trailer in the back of the U-Haul to get it home.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was like, don't call me at 3 a.m. anymore. This is your one save here. We've had some adventures.
That fishing bug is real. It's absolutely, gang, we talk about it all the time with all my guests whenever I bring them in. And I always want to start at the beginning because, Drew does a lot of really bitching stuff, and he's really involved in this fishing industry and CCA and all those things. But we always got to go back to the beginning, gang. How did Drew get the bug? His father took him fishing, his grandfather. Someone in your life took you fishing and that's how you got the bug. That's why we got to keep this thing alive. That's why I talk about it on the podcast every day. Take a child fishing. Look around. If you're a fisherman, talk to your neighbors, their children. You never know. Like Drew just said, it saved him from all kinds of bad stuff that could have happened.
I mean, I was a good kid in general, but I wasn't like joining gangs or anything, but it really did keep me on a good path,
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's Newport or Santa Ana. There's all kinds of bad stuff out there for children to fall into. Or you could have just been stuck inside of a house all day. You could have became a gamer. You could have been a gamer. If you
I feel like a streamer today with the setup here.
Well, you're doing great, and I love your podcast. That's why I reached out to bring you on here, because you're looking at it at a different way and a different angle, and it's good. Everything out there that has to do with fishing, I personally believe that it is good. Anything to talk about fishing, anything to do with fishing, I'm not that guy. There's a lot of people out there that are just dripping negative, and they're all, oh, that Dave Hansen. Da, da, da. Yeah, well, here I am. I'm 62 years old and I'm still super relevant, gang. So you can do whatever you want or think whatever you want about me. I don't care. I never have, but I want to touch people like Drew. I want to talk to the younger generation, because that's the future of fishing. And not that you're a young man anymore. You're a grown man now, but you got into it when you were young. And now you're passing your passion on to so many people that are finding out about what you do. And like one of the guys just said, Drew's a goat. No, you're doing some great things in the industry that need to be done looking at it at a different way than most young people look at it. You are tuning people in, and your involvement with CCA and the big star tournament that's coming up. And we need more boats, like you were saying. But at the very beginning, man, it's about taking children fishing. That is what is going to help us to keep fishing open in California.
Yeah, I feel like my path from there was pretty wild for a young man. When I look back at it, like I graduated high school and I went up to Alaska. I actually worked at a lodge up in Alaska for a couple summers while I was going to college. And you kind of grew up real quick out there. We were about 50 miles from the nearest town in Point Baker. It's about 50 miles from Petersburg, and totally self-sufficient. We made our own water. Power ran off generators. It was a really, really cool experience. I got to meet, anywhere from Indian chiefs to CEOs, and I really got to familiarize myself with providing excellent service. And if you're in the fishing industry and you want to go far, excellent service is a lot of the times what's missing. You know what I mean? Everyone can yell, everyone can do this, but at the end of the day, people want to enjoy their day on the water. Whether they catch a sculpin that's this big or a 200-pound tuna, if they're having a good time, that's what it's all about right there. So that was a great adventure, and we rolled back from like 2015 into with Natalie Ann Sport Fishing starting. We started in Dana Point, then moved up to Rainbow Harbor and Long Beach. We did a lot of offshore trips. We did a lot of full day to Catalina, full day offshore. Obviously, 2015 was some of the greatest yellowfin fishing I'll probably ever see in my life locally. So it really was a lot of opportunity. There wasn't a lot of guys doing it. It was really fun to do like that 4-pack charter where you're very intimate with the customer. You know what I mean? You get to hang out with them. And by the end of the day, I always say this, when you go fishing with someone, by the end of the day, you're all buddies. Everyone's a great friend at the end of the day. You can go out with 2 random people, and by the end of it, you're friends, you're sharing stories. It's a great way to connect with people as well.
Oh my gosh, that you couldn't have said it any better. That is the whole thing. And when I introduced you to my website, which you knew about, but you had never really dug into it, when I showed you all the cool things that I've done here lately with the community and the app and everything, that's what you told me right away was, does anybody know about this community? Do they know you're doing this? The community, that is where we put everybody together and they all become friends and they all have that common goal of getting out there and going fishing. And thank you for telling me that, because now that's what I lead with on every phone call because of what you told me. It matters more than anything. You were blown away that I call every one of my members.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Hearing how many members you have and how big your community and following is, to get a personal phone call from the dude himself is pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you very much. I love that when they answer the phone, Drew, and they're like, Dave? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, I make my own phone calls. I'm me. It's just me. It's a pretty cool thing. Let's talk about that Natalie Ann thing, because you were, everybody understands that watches me that I started that whole lobster thing, but then you got to go work with Ben, and Ben's a good friend of mine. And then you got to start running the Natalie Ann. You got to start doing that lobster fishing inside of LA Long Beach Harbor. Isn't that an unbelievable area? There's so much stuff that's just untapped in there. You would
Yeah.
never imagine it. But when I started doing it, man, we didn't know anything. We had nothing to go off of. There were no bitchin' maps or anything. We just started going out and throwing hoops and spots and seeing if there were lobsters there. And you guys took it to a whole different level. And when I left it on the Liquid Coast Highway in I don't even remember, 2014, 2013 or something, then you guys stepped in 2015 and just took it to a different level. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I got my captain's license in 2014 or so. So it's really cool to be able to, have the opportunity to run a boat. How many people get to just walk into an opportunity on a boat they've known since, they were 12 years old, going out fishing on this boat. So I was very comfortable with it. And it was great to have an area like Long Beach Harbor as a backup. It started as a backup, right? If the weather was too bad to go to Catalina, because we were doing the deep thing out at Catalina back when it was really, really good, to the point where I was mad if we didn't limit out in the first set. I was frustrated with myself. If we had to put the gear back down, I was frustrated with myself. But it was really good, that 2015, 2016 era of fishing Catalina. And then, once that port opened up in Long Beach, it was game on. I think that was even 2015 around there. But I mean, I remember guys lining up on a specific wall. You'd set your 10 nets, you get your limit. The next person would come in and there'd be a boat waiting for that guy. It was crazy. 6-8 pounders was the norm, and it's still really good. I would say we're getting a lot more shorts. I do probably like, I don't know, maybe 10 trips to Long Beach. I don't really run to Catalina anymore because I hate running in the dark if I don't have to. I'm not doing charters anymore. So, it's more for fun and see if we can get one of those really big ones. And our biggest this year was like 11.6. So there is still really big ones out there. In
Yeah.
Long Beach.
Oh yeah, we proved it this year with our live shows. There was some phenomenal lobsters. Hey, you know what, Drew? I don't want to cut you off, but we got people are just throwing question after question. Let's look at a question here real quick.
Yep.
You see that from Brian?
Yeah, so my surface iron setup, I have a Seeker 540. It's a big, heavy jig stick, but it's really fun to fish. I enjoy fishing it, and I fish down in Bay of LA a lot. So that's normally where I do my surface iron fishing. I'll fish a Torium 20 or a Trinidad 20 on one of those Duran's mega clips. So it's super solid, super sturdy, and that rod has a lot of backbone. And I really like the Duran surface iron. So CNC, they're expensive, but everyone's the same. And it's just like a confidence for me. I always say fish what you're confident in, and that's like my go-to setup.
I got a question for you since you brought it up. That super clip, that clip deal.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, this is where my head goes when I see that. It's like one more thing for the fish to see. But then, so I always just tie the lure straight to the fluoro.
I
But
do
then
the same.
I see what you guys are doing with that clip, and it gives that lure just a little more action, a little freedom, not stuck on the knot. Is that true? Is that what I'm actually seeing? Or I've
No,
never used it.
I was talking about the clamp on the rod. They make a
Oh,
specific
okay. I thought
clamp.
you were talking about the clip. I'm sorry.
I'm not a fan of the clips. I've tried them. I fished last night. I fished the breakwall last night with some buddies, and I was like, I'm gonna give these clips a chance. And to me, it's just an extra humbug, and
Okay.
I don't mind retying.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That's how my head goes. And if you're not, you're probably just like me. If you put that on there and you make a cast and you didn't get a bite and your head's telling you It's the
It's that
clip.
clip.
It's the
Yeah.
clip. Get that damn clip off. I got a straight tie. And
Yeah.
and you know what? I don't know how you did it, but this guy, the next question is all about fishing the breakwall.
I fish a lot of calico bass. I have a 20-foot Skeeter bay boat, so it's fun to go out there for an evening of fishing. I guess I do fish in Long Beach a lot at this point in my life, more than I realized. It's probably one of my buddies because I bring like 6 rods that are all rigged up. You know, in the daytime we're fishing crankbaits and A-rigs and really bass dork stuff is what I call it. And at nighttime, you know, we're fishing maybe like a 1-ounce warbait head with a skirted jig and like a crawdad. We're casting way deep into the rocks with like 50-pound fluoro and pulling out some big bass. We've got some really good ones this spring, so it's been really good.
That's what I was going to lead into. My next thing was guys like Drew are fishing the breakwall, but you guys don't understand. People go, why are there still so many bass? Well, first of all, very few people fish the breakwall proper. What Drew's talking about is you are on it. First of all, the guy that's driving the boat has to know what he's doing because you're in there so tight to the rock, gang. And if you can't cast, don't go. Don't even go fish the breakwall. If you can't, and I mean cast 100 times to the exact same spot, not, oh, I got one good cast today. That's not casting. You know, Drew, how many casts you fished it last night? How many casts did you make?
You know, it was so slow last night. I probably made a zillion, maybe 2 zillion. You're right there, but you're 100% right. And like my boat is a specific style of boat for fishing that, where I have a bow mounted trolling motor. And, you know, I have a guy in the back that knows if we have to get out of there, he can operate the motor and get us out of there. But, you know, fishing on like a sport fisher style boat or like let's say like a 20-foot skipjack is tough. It's almost impossible, you know. You drift too fast, you drift into the wall, there's surge. To really get in there tight and get those big bass, it's pretty gear specific, you know.
But go back to the cast, gang. This is the whole thing. We talk about it on the podcast all the time. I talk about it in my series of videos. Learning how to cast is going to change what you catch. I don't care if it's offshore, onshore, fishing the breakwall. You've got to be able to cast consistently. You got to be able to make a zillion casts in a day and not be afraid to make them. And another thing that Drew will tell you, that when you cast and you don't hit that spot that you wanted to hit, you burn that lure back and cast right back. You don't even spend any booger eater time. Oh, maybe no. You know that little point of that rock what's got the ledge, and you knew, right? You saw it. You wanted to cast into it, and you didn't make it. You burn your lure back and cast again. There's no booger eater cast, gang. When you're fishing like this, you have to know how to cast. Right, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, we're making the same 45, I'd say 40-foot cast in the dark, right? The breakwall bites at night a lot better than the daytime, significantly better than the daytime. But we're making that same cast in the dark. You let your eyes adjust a little bit, and you're trying to make, if the rock's here and the water's hitting it here, your lure's trying to hit that apex right there in the middle. And you better hold on, because when you hook a good one, you know, we've got some fish 6-7 pounds this year. It is a battle, even on 50-pound to 65-pound braid. You better hold on tight, you know.
And gang, we're talking to Drew, and Drew gets to fish all over the place. And he, like you say, he's been to LA Bay, he's been to all over the Baja. He loves to fish, and fishing's his thing. But you know what? And my buddy Cubby's watching right now. He won the Bisbees. Cubby's a big time fisherman too, just like you and me. But there's nothing like calico bass fishing on the planet.
Yeah, it's a good time.
There is not. You guys all think I booger out because, oh, Dave just loves calico. There is something about making that perfect cast in that little crack or that little groove, and I'm a bait guy, so I'm really a weirdo. I'm throwing a bait in there with the drag hammer down an 80-pound fluoro, and the drag, you can't take an inch of line off, and I'm throwing that bait in there, and he's not running because they woof it when they're on that rock, and you have to turn their head and get them out of that rock, and you can't drop the tip. There is so much to calico bass fishing if you do it right, Drew. Think about this, gang. How late were you out there fishing last night, Drew?
Yeah, we stayed a little late. My wife was a little bothered with me. We're getting off the water like midnight. But you know, you get out there with some buddies and you're just having such a good time. I think we were around, it was a pretty slow night. We were around 60 fish. You know, we average a little bit more than that, but you know, it's just a good time. And I always tell people this, like, if you want to get better at offshore fishing, start with inshore fishing, right? As funny as it sounds, go on a half day or take your boat, go get 2 scoops of bait and go sit at San Onofre, or, you know, go sit on a kelp line somewhere and just blow through fly line baits. Literally just keep casting, keep pitching, figure out when it hits the water, what to do, how to set the hook. Okay, are you a circle hook guy? Are you a J hook guy? Practice that hook set, because you don't want that time where you're on a kelp patty or you're on like a plunker bite for bluefin and you get that bite and you fumble it, because it's so hard to get a bite sometimes that you really, the best anglers can really capitalize on any opportunity.
And it goes right back to casting. Now, what you just did last night with your buddies, yeah, I'm sure you're just like me. You've had friends go, oh, I want to go do it. And you're like, dude, you can't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love you. You're my buddy and you're my pal, but no, you're not going to enjoy yourself. You don't. And I can't cast for you. I can't. I'm like you, Drew. If I'm going to go I'm going to go fishing. And there's a big difference when you're the captain of the sport boat or you're the captain of the yacht. You don't really fish. That's not the deal. Yeah, we cast a bait out and hook in hand to fish once in a while, but when it's your day, Drew, to go fishing, I know you're like me. No, we're going fishing. Hey, bro, I love you, but no, you can't come on this trip because it's all about casting, and it is. And he's going to stand there on the boat, and it's going to be 11 o'clock at night, and you guys are fired up, and you know that next cast going to be that 8 or 10 pound calico, and he's like, dude, how much longer? I don't want to.
If you ask what time we're coming back, you're on the wrong boat.
You're not going.
Yeah,
don't get to go with us. You don't get to come with us. A couple of people are asking, hey, what's the name of your podcast? We're going to get into the podcast thing. We're going to get into all the things that he has going on in his life. But you know me, man, we start talking calicos. I'm like, when I had Benny Florentino on here, I just can't help it. I'm Mr. Calico Bass. That's my favorite thing. That's my logo on my shirt, Calico Bass. Yep. That's our fish in California. That is our fish. If you don't like to catch calico bass, you know why? Because you don't know how to cast.
There we got the hat right here.
There it is, right there on his head. And there's Cubby right there. He's saying so true. People that don't like to catch calico bass, Drew, it's because the number one reason is they don't know how to cast.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing, like I'm almost glad they don't get any bigger, because you wouldn't be able to swim. When you really get calicos fired up, if they got bigger, they would eat you.
They would eat you.
They would eat you. I've seen bass, you know, backflip out of water for bait, or they're so locked in on your weedless swim bait at San Clemente Island that they come in and they hit the trolling motor because they think it's something else they could eat. You know, these fish are they're very aggressive, and you can target them a bunch of different techniques. You know, you're a bait guy, you can do whatever you want. You know, that's what makes it fun.
One of my buddies, Dave Lee, was asking, Dave, do we have any videos on teaching you how to cast? And Drew, to help everybody out, because I've told him this 100 million times. There is no video on the planet you can watch, gang, that's going to teach you. How did you learn how to cast?
Well, my parents had a swimming pool when I was growing up, and I would go back there with a bait caster I bought off like eBay for like $12, you know, all plastic. And I would go practice flipping into like inflatable rings. You know, my mom would have her inflatable rings that she would lounge in. And, you know, I'd throw like a swim bait with a hook on it. And if I made it in the ring, I would set the hook into the swimming pool floaty ring and fight it like a fish. You know, that was my practice growing up.
And it's all about practice, gang. There's no video you can watch. There's nobody that can show you how to cast. It can't be done. The only way you're going to learn is to do it and do it and do it. And here's me. I tell this story. When I was a kid with my dad, we didn't have all this fancy gear you guys have nowadays. We had the old Beachmaster reels. Those were the rental reels at Dana Wharf Sport Fishing, 1-to-1 gear ratio. And we had monofilament on there. We had I think back in those days, we used Maxima for all the rent rods, but you would make a cat not knowing how to cast and you backlash that reel. And I remember going after it with a pair of pliers. And my father says, you burn up all that line. I'm not giving you any more line. And I'd look at the office and there's 150 rods there with full line. And he go, well, that's yours. Pick the backlash out. At that time, I thought he was being a complete a-hole. Little did I know he was teaching me a skill that would come along and be like the thing for me. I could cast all day. I see a rod I want to cast. I just want to cast. I want to throw a bait. I want to check it out. But gang, you're not going to learn it. And here's Drew to tell you that Dave's not blowing smoke up your butt. The only way you're going to learn is to practice. And once you have this disease we call fishing, you will do whatever you can to learn how to cast. Right, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, moving forward into this whole tuna era that we've been in the last, let's say, 8-10 years, my approach to that has changed. I used to do a lot of guiding on these like really go fast boats is what I call them. We're talking anywhere 3 to 5 outboards. We're burning a lot of fuel or running gun fishing. And I really got into like foam or bluefin fishing, right? Which I would say that's probably one of the hardest casts to make. I don't care how seasoned you are, how many times you practice. You see those, let's say it's 60 to 80 pound fish and it's full blown foam. And you go to make a cast, you got to take a breath. You got to think about it a little bit. So I've changed my application for that style of fishing. I'll actually fish a Stella like this. This is the 14,000, I believe. And, for fishing the stick baits, fishing the poppers, anywhere from, let's say, 20 to 80 pound fish, that 14,000 Stella is my move, because when I make that cast on a conventional reel with a popper, your slack line, when you're reeling in that popper, you say you do a pop, you have slack. By the time you go to do that second cast, because you had all that slack in your line, it's tough to make that second cast unless you're very conscious about it. So switching over to the spinning application for taking newer guys has really upped our catch ratio. And, I know you may not be a big spinning reel fan, but watching these guys be able to cast and hook their own fish has been very rewarding,
There's nothing wrong with using spinning reels. There's nothing. It's not like 1960 when you had the old coffee grinder that we called it, and it didn't have any real gearing in it, and they would fall apart after a 10-minute battle with anything big.
Yeah.
Nowadays, these spinning reels, man, you can buy $1,000 spinning reel, and you're not getting the best. Those spinning reels are phenomenal now with the gearing and everything. And like Drew was saying, with that popper style fishing or that foamer style fishing, yeah, that spinning reel has a definite spot in it because of all the stuff that's going on. And most people, really, you're standing on the bow of a boat and you've never seen anything like this. 100-pound fish just flying out of the water everywhere, and you're freaking out. And you go back with your conventional rod and you go back to cast and you lose your mind, and it backlashes and your $30 popper goes flying off because the line snapped, and you're the guy standing up there, the only guy without something to fish with now. If you're not super proficient, I mean, you have to be like super proficient with the conventional. I would never allow any of my passengers to ever go up to the bow to cast without the spinning reel. There's just no way around it. It's not worth it, because they're gonna throw that thing out. It's gonna hit the water as hard as, because it goes straight up, backlash, and then that jig comes down and hits the water so hard, every tuna in the world vanishes. They're scared to death. They're like, what the hell was that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but I get a little.
No, you're good. I still have a couple Colt snipers in orbit right now from casting them. They just passed Starlink right now. They're still flying out there. I've winged. Yeah, if anyone's done it, I've made some wild casts, and I've tried, switching to like a Calico 16 with 100-pound braid when there's big fish around. It's still, it's doable, but it's still the same thing. You always try and make the farthest cast you can, and you got to be good to do it,
And then, like you were saying, as you pop it, then you got that little bit of slack, and it makes a loop in the line. And so then when you go back to cast the next time with your convention, Your backlash. I don't care who you are. You can be
Well,
Frank.
which normally you cast too early when you're sliding into those fish. You end up casting too early. So your second cast is your reel cast. That's why, picking up all the slack with the spinning reels, you can really get into that. That's basically my only spinning application, unless I have like my wife on board. We're fishing baits at Catalina with a bait runner. Really, that's my only spinning application. But it's cool. I think it's definitely coming into Southern California. I always feel like we're a little bit behind in the fishing industry in Southern California. So if you can adapt new techniques and constantly be learning, you can kind of stay on that edge.
And that's the key, gang, is constantly be learning. If you feel like you already know everything, there's a pretty good chance you're not catching much. You might catch fish when it's wide open, but you got to learn. And that's why we brought Drew on here today to talk about it, because yeah, I'm an old crusty guy. I'm kind of set in my ways, but there's no reason for that. I remember 2015, I was out with two of my good friends, Jeff on the Cowboy and Greg on the El Suertudo, and they were knocking. Nobody knew, and I know that everybody knew, but nobody knew what they were doing yet. And they were fishing that flying fish under the kite. And I didn't even know how to spell kite, let alone know how to fly the kite. And thank God I wasn't set in my ways, because I went over there and I asked them, hey, can you guys help me? And they took me out on the boat with them one day, and they taught me how to fish it. And then the rest is history. You can see all the pictures and everything from when I was running the wild and sack. But you got to learn all the time. Everything's changing. That breakwall fishing, that's way different than what it was like in the late 60s, early 70s, when we would go out there and do it with a green bomber jig and a squid head on your bomber jig and bounce it down the rocks and catch those big sand bass that live on that thing. Nowadays, really, if you don't have one of these super high-tech war bait, no snagging, a big paddle tail or a crankbait, whatever you guys are using, which I don't even know because I'm a bait guy, but all that stuff, those fish get smart. They learn. They've seen that bait. They've seen that bait. They've seen that bait. They're not going to eat that bait unless
there is one bait that I'll share with your team that will always catch fish no matter where you throw it, and it's one of my go-tos. It's like a half-ounce sled head and a jerk shad.
Oh,
you
really?
can take that out to the break wall. Like I had a buddy last night. He's fishing last night. He's not the best angler, we'd say, or he's working on it, but you can give that to anyone, throw it at the break wall. You have a great shot at catching a lot of fish.
So super why don't you always use it?
Yeah, we get set in our ways. We want to fish the flashy thing. We think, oh, this crazy lure is going to catch us something better. And, at the end of the day, you end up with the same amount of fish and you just lost a bunch of tackle. You'll lose a lot of tackle fishing that break, I'll tell you what.
And you have to. If you're not losing tackle, you're not fishing the break wall.
Yeah. I've donated my fair share.
You're just not fishing the break wall. And we have a really good friend that's a diver here. The best thing for you to do is on a flat, calm day is to go dive the break wall, and you'll probably make thousands of dollars on lures because the thing's just covered in lures. Before we get into what your podcast and what you're doing today, what's your favorite part of that break wall? LA part, the middle?
Yeah, I fish the federal break wall. I fish the middle part a lot. It's normally the best drift with the wind. Like you have to do less corrections. We're talking about fishing the outside or the inside. That normal wind, kind of northwest wind that we get. If you start out at Angel's Gate up top there by San Pedro and slide down the wall that way, outside or inside, you normally have a pretty good drift with minimal corrections. So that can be a great spot to start and learn where you're not constantly being pushed into the wall. You're kind of drifting down with it. Last night we had a perfect drift. If you can get a night where it's less than 10 knots of wind, go fish it. The fish may not be as active because there's not a lot of splashing and, chaos going on, but it's a great introduction. I wouldn't say go out there. If it's over 15, don't do it unless you're proficient at it.
Yeah, and then you want to be on the inside anyway. If it's blowing 15, it's going to be not fun. Yeah. And Seed Sanctuary, if you're thinking of a fishing trip, drinking beer, you're not going fishing with us because we're fishing. When you make a gazillion casts, you have zero time to take a sip of a beer. There's no beer drink going on fishing the break wall.
I'm eating a sandwich while I'm still casting. We do the double time. We really, biggest thing I see a lot of guys struggle with when they're out fishing is they don't maximize their time. You really have to maximize your time. Your preparation should be done at home. And when you get out on the water, that's your time to actually catch fish, right? By the time you drive, say you're fishing Catalina, you wake up at 4 a.m., you drive all the way to Catalina, you get set up on a spot, and then you go to rig your rods and stuff. Your window of actually fishing is so limited. If you're rigging up a popper when you see fish on the surface, you're not going to catch them. You're too late. I mean, you might, but I like to be ultra prepared. And I think a lot of bass fishermen are like that, where they're over prepared with things. That's why they are, a lot of them are really good anglers, but, having your boat dialed, making sure your first trip out, your bait's not doing good. You know what I mean? Like, service your boat in the wintertime. Don't wait till summertime to get all that rolling, Now is the time.
Yeah. And like I say all the time on the podcast, every single thing matters. And what Drew's talking about, gang, is everything. Everything matters. And if he's taking a bite, I can totally see it. He's taking a bite of a sandwich, but the corner of his eye, he saw this crack in the rock at the same, right as he, and now he's got to underhand cast that lure over there and then set the sandwich down and start to wind, because everything matters. And that's why he has so many rods rigged up, because he's ready. He's totally prepared. The way I did it, guiding with these people for so long, I wouldn't rig up the rods till I saw the bait. So we'd be at the bait barge. We'd start to load the bait, and I'd go, okay, the bait's 4-inch today. We're going to put on a couple of 4-inch plastic lures or whatever we're going to fish with. And then all the hooks are going to be a 1/0 hook, because that's going to fish the best for the bait. But if you guys have another thing, if you have all your rods all rigged up right now for your trip you're going to take out in a month, you're not ready. You're not ready at all, right, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, if you're fishing artificials or doing this bass style, maybe, but I mean, the fishing in Southern California changes so quick. Like in summertime, it's sometimes like game day decision where we're going to go fish, what we're going to go do. Are we going to go to Clemente for yellows, or are we going to run down the ridge and do all the tuna stuff? And it's crazy, like with these go fast boats, you open up a lot of opportunities. So it is difficult to prepare for everything, but you just do the best you can.
And so now, what are you doing now? So you said you're not doing charters anymore. You're not charter boat anymore. What are you doing? Are you running a yacht? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, no, so I was doing charters, and I kind of got into the slow season. I was doing like yacht deliveries where they deliver boats off a ship. If you've never seen, it's really cool to see. They, strap and hoist these boats, 70, 80-foot boats, hang them over the side. And you have about 10 minutes to figure out how to get this brand new boat that just came from a factory that has 4 hours on it, how to run. And, everything's in different languages, and, it's chaos sometimes, but it's really fun. So I was doing deliveries, let's say from Ensenada to San Diego, or San Diego up to Newport, kind of local stuff. And then I was lucky enough to get on with the family, and we don't charter, we don't do anything. I'm just their private captain. We have a few boats here. So very lucky.
Absolutely. That's like in our industry, when you get the right family and the right group, man, you just won the lottery, because this is what we're going to do anyway. This is what we're going to do for a living anyway. One of my good buddies, Al Clowers, just got back from getting a bunch of stuff for us for our big, we're doing a presentation tonight at the Oceanside Angling Club. Al, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
We're talking bass fishing with Drew, man. We're having a ball. We're burning through a lot of time just talking bass. We haven't even got in. So you have a podcast too, Drew, right?
Yeah, it's called the Bait Tank Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. It's just me that runs it. I'm actually in my little studio right now where I do my podcasts. And it's cool. I get to talk to a lot of guys that maybe the average guy, like you, like maybe the average guy wouldn't. They'd see this guy at the bait barge or anchored up on a spot or hung on fish, but they wouldn't really get to have an in-depth conversation and how they're doing, what they're doing. And I think taking a perspective, like someone from the industry, talking with another industry person and sharing it with people who maybe are just getting into fishing is cool. You know, it's something to share. And, you know, at the end of, you know, however long I do this, at the end of this, I'll have a big collection of, you know, good friends I've made along the way and a lot of information out there for people to learn from.
And people can find your podcast on Spotify and Apple.
Yeah, we have an Instagram page, and it's on Spotify and Apple. It's just Bait Tank Podcasts. We've had Benny on. His son Matt was on there as well. Really cool, like a guide from Louisiana came on talking about the wahoo and the yellowfin fishing out there. We have some great guests coming up, so it's exciting. It's fun. I like to support local fishing businesses because we need that. You know, everybody wants to get rid of fishing, but if you love fishing, it hurts to see that, you know.
Do me a favor and talk about the Star Tournament coming up real quick, because there's a lot to say. Like tomorrow, we're going fishing on the Helena, and everybody that's going fishing with me is donating $50 a piece to CCA, because it takes money to fight this machine that's coming down the pipe. And this Star Tournament is a really cool event put on by CCA. Talk about that for a minute if you can.
Yeah, so you'll register for the Star Tournament, and I'm not super familiar with it. I'm still learning about it myself. But like I signed up at the PCS show, and you get this sweet little fish ruler here. Kind of get on there, shows all the sponsors and people who support fishing on there. And it's there's bass or saltwater bass division, halibut, yellowtail, tuna, and there's an app that you download. You scan it on the QR code, put up here if people want to pause it and they can get on it or go back to it later. But it seemed really cool. You know, I was talking with them at the PCS show, and you know, bringing this to California, I know it's been very successful in Florida. There's a lot of great prizes you can win. They have an 18-foot Parker, which would be a perfect little Baja trailer runner to take down there. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we get lucky, but you know, all in all, we get to support California fishing. So.
And it doesn't have to be a big bluefin to win the tournament. It can be a bass on the breakwall. It can be a sheephead. It can be whatever you catch. You don't know. You got to go fishing though. You got to be a part of this and be a part of ccacalifornia.org. Tomorrow's going to be a great day, gang. We got Wayne Coda, the man from CCA, joining us on the Helena tomorrow fishing. So those of you that are on the trip with us, you can ask Wayne any questions you want. But then at 5 o'clock, Wayne's going to be at the party. Please let him just enjoy himself. Stay away. His politics is all day, every day. That's what Wayne has to deal with. He's going to come and have a taco with Drew and I and relax and just calm down. Let's not inundate him with all this stuff. We already know this crap's going on that they want to end fishing in California. It's so sad, but let's let Wayne enjoy his day at Don Hansen Day at Dana Point.
Yeah, and I would say get registered for this tournament like as soon as possible. You know, it's funny and figure out how to use it. It's not that difficult. I figured it out now, but I actually got this at the PCS show, and like 2 days later, I went out to number one there in Newport. And we were bass fishing up tight, and I caught like a 6-pound calico. And I fumbled it a little bit because I didn't know how to register and how to do all that stuff. It would have been a great fish to submit for the tournament. And so be prepared, because if you sign up for it and you don't know how to work the system and how to do it all, you're going to end up catching the fish that could possibly win it. So, you know, you got to be ready for that.
And then the tournament, it's going to run until Memorial Day weekend, right? Or Labor Day. One of the 2 weekends.
It's the end of summer, I believe. Yeah.
End of summer. So it's going to be the whole summer long, gang. And you want to go to here, I'm going to throw up the QR code and you can go over there and check it out. ccacalifornia.org. Everything on this QR code is going to drive you over to the site. Also, you'll learn all about the Star Tournament. And like Drew was saying, you guys are all fishing. There's no reason everybody shouldn't be. And you can win this thing on a sport boat. You can win this thing on a private boat. You can win this thing on Drew's yacht. It doesn't matter. You can win it on a rowboat. You can win it fishing off a dock. But you want to get involved because you're going to help us save fishing in California. It's super important. Grab the QR code, become a member, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands how important it is. Guy like Drew started out fishing on the Dana Pride out of Dana War Sport Fishing. Another person my father touched that's a fisherman that's helping us save fishing. Please come out tomorrow and support Don Hansen Day at Dana War Sport Fishing. The number one reason why we all get to do what we do is because my dad went to all the meetings. He was a huge politician when he didn't need to be. He'd already built a phenomenal fleet of boats, gang. But he fought the fight because he didn't want guys like Drew and my grandkids and my deckhands to not be able to fish. It's unbelievable that they don't want us to fish in the state of California. And look at how much fun you had last night fishing the breakwall, for God's sakes. You get to fish tuna whenever you want. You get to fish for yellowtail whenever you want, but you fished the breakwall and had a phenomenal night. Got in trouble, as a matter of fact, for being out too late.
Yeah, and it's really cool too, Dave, that I can see, I'm a young guy myself. I'm only 28. But I see a younger generation below me, like some of my neighbors, like my neighbor Cameron down the street. He works on the Western Pride out of Newport, and I see the same excitement that they have. I'm always trying to give them some rods and reels, or they're doing Mexico trips, how to do it, and all this stuff. And I want that for my kids to be able to fish in California and go, share the same passion that I love doing myself. If they don't like fishing, we'll see how it goes, but hopefully they do like fishing.
Yeah, and they at least give him a chance to get out there and see, like Drew, when he closes his eyes and thinks about his dad on the upper deck of the Dana Pride, watching him stand down there and fish and fish and fish. That is an epic memory that you can't buy that memory. Fishing is such a phenomenal thing to do. I mean, Al and I, we've been watching the live show today with Justin, but while we were doing that, and here Al's 63, I'm 62. We're standing on the dock fishing like a couple little kids because we're just so into it. It's like that could be the cast where we catch that spotted bay bass, and it just does because we own the disease. It's ours, and it's cool to have someone like you on here. What your Instagram page is? Bait Tank Podcast, right?
Bait Tank Podcast. Yeah, check us out. I got a YouTube channel going up as well. It's up right now. It's Bait Tank Podcast as well. We filmed a few of our episodes. We got Benny's up there. We got Matt from AFTCO. We got a few more a little behind the ball. It's hard to keep up with all this stuff with having a real job, so but it's fun. I think it's really cool to share my passion with people in a way that I've had. I went to an event the other day at SoCal Ocean Sports. My buddy did a grand opening for his boat shop, and just random people were coming up saying, "Oh man, I've listened to every episode," and it really means a lot. The support is really, really cool.
Oh, it's a good podcast, gang. That's why I got Drew on here. Everyone kept pointing me towards Drew, saying you got to get him on he runs a great podcast. He's introducing so many new people to fishing, and that's what it's all about. And that's a challenge for everybody that's watching this today, is to hit the like button and the share button down there, because you have no idea who's going to see this and go, wow, I want to have the passion. I want my child to have the passion that Drew has. I don't want him to be like Captain Dave. He's too old. But Drew, that would be rad. That would be cool for my child to be into fishing like Drew is. And what a cool thing to get in trouble for. What did you get in trouble for with your mom or your wife last night? Oh, because I fished.
Yeah, with my wife. Yeah, I was staying out too late fishing the breakwall, and just the opportunity in fishing and running boats and being on the water is crazy. Like I'm going out to see our next build out in London next week, just to really put in perspective the different avenues in this industry that you can go and where you can end up. It's crazy to think that all this came from just a young kid fishing.
And yeah, you're getting to travel. How rad. You get to travel and
cool.
go see all kinds of cool stuff, all because that's what I tell a lot of kids. You get your captain's license, you have no idea what's going to happen.
There's a need for captains. There is a strong need for captains that show up on time and do what they're going to say they're going to do. It's hard to find in the industry right now. But man, I see so much. I turn down so much opportunity of, let's say it's yacht deliveries or deckhand on a private yacht or this kind of thing, a private sport fisher. There's a lot of opportunities I recommend that. It's just good to have, and you learn so much about safety on the water. At least take a STCW class to really, if there is a fire on board, what do you do? How old is that fire extinguisher that's all rusty? Go through your boat safety equipment. I'm big on safety. I worked for Vessel Assist for a couple years, and some of the calls that I went on out there to really, it blew my mind that they made it that far. You know what I mean? It's pretty incredible. You know, you're like, you're on a 17-foot, bayliner mid-channel. Oh, mid-channel of Clemente. Okay. Oh, you can see Catalina and Clemente. Okay. All right. We're coming to get you. Don't worry, buddy. You know, so it's really cool. That was a great experience as well.
A very learning experience, because now you know what to look for, right? You're like, oh, wait a minute. You're not going offshore on this pile of crap. What are you talking
about? Yeah, I've seen a lot of things on the water. Biggest thing is make sure you have enough gas. There's no reason to run out of gas. I don't care how good the fishing is. Don't run out of gas.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but
it happens.
I've done it.
Yeah, I've done it as well.
I can't say I didn't do it, because I did it. I did it on a sport boat once.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
It's actually how I got hooked up with Boat US. Towboat up in Long Beach was, we were out fishing the breakall on my 15-foot whaler and just ran the batteries dead with a little trolling motor. And S was probably 2014. He said, hey, if you had your captain's license, I'd hire you tomorrow. And there's still opportunity like that. So I went, got my captain's license, all this stuff. And now Mike is a great friend of mine. But that really, kickstarted me down that path and motivated me. So maybe this will motivate someone to get their license and start running boats. And it's a great industry. It's a great place to work. Get to be on the water. Some days it's great. Some days it's tough. It's just like any job. But, you learn a lot about critical thinking as well.
And there's, like Drew was saying, there's so much opportunity. And if you don't believe us, go down to your local harbor and look around. All those boats need a captain. They do, whether they know it or not. And you'll see the opportunities there. Like I try to tell everybody, there's so much opportunity in this industry, but most people are too lazy to seize the opportunity. So there's so many good reasons to become a captain. There's so many good reasons to get a job working on a boat. It teaches you work ethic, first of all. It teaches you a phenomenal work ethic. If you're late, the job's gone. So
literally,
hey, I'm late today. Yeah, well, your job left 5 minutes ago. It's out at the bait barge right now. That's something that people don't understand. And like you said, there's so many opportunities, because nowadays nobody wants to work. Everybody younger than you, there's not very many people younger than you that are into going to get a job nowadays. So you can be pretty much the boss of the company if you just show up.
Absolutely. No, I remember I was eating lunch at Turk's one day, and I saw Brandon from the Current. That's who I bought my first Boston whaler from.
Oh, wow.
And I saw him down there, and I was kind of in between gigs, I was just kind of moping around a little bit. And I went down there and I was like, hey, how's it going, Brandon? You looking for a deckhand? He's like, yeah, my guy's going to college next week. Why don't you fill in on a couple 3/4 days? And I ran like half a season with him, and that was cool, just doing he does the private 6-pack there at Dana Wharf.
Yep.
So you never know. You just ask. That's the biggest thing,
And gang, I'm going to throw this up one more time. We're going to talk about it before we close this up. And we're going to go back to Justin fishing live out at Catalina. I have no idea what he's doing out there because we jumped off of here. But gang, go to this website, Promar Ahi USA, and you'll be blown away. Or use the QR code. Every single thing you use on a daily basis, landing nets, bait scoops, sabiki rods, the live deception flash lures, the hoop nets, all the gear for hooping, plus the descending unit that you must have. It's all available over at the Promar website. Grab that QR code, go to Promar. If you're listening to this podcast, and put in the code YSWG and the number 22, you're going to save 10% on all the products. And I will be at the Oceanside Angling Club tonight at 6:00. It's an open meeting. It's going to be packed house. I got tons of free stuff for the children. Promar came through big time. I will be there speaking tonight at 6 o'clock doing the Dave Hansen Poop Show. It should be hilarious. It'll be fun. And then tomorrow, Don Hansen Day at Dana Point Harbor, Dana Wharf Sport Fishing. There's going to be a lot of memories, a lot of cool things to talk about and see. The history of my father and all the great things that he did as a man putting that Dana Wharf Sport Fishing together. It's going to be a phenomenal event. Don't not show up. Drew's going to be there. You can tell him you saw him on my podcast, or you're going to tell him, thank God I never saw you on Dave's podcast. Either way, we're both going to be there. We want to shake your hand. We want to say hi to everybody. There's the banner for Don Hansen Day tomorrow. Please show up. It's going to be incredible. Maybe we can get everybody together and take a big picture. One of my buddies was saying, take a picture in front of the Don Hansen sign. That's a great idea. We'll try to pull that together for you. Oh my gosh. Drew, you got anything else to promote?
No, just thank you to West Coast Marine. They helped me out a lot up here in Newport Beach. They keep my boats running and really help me going. And just everyone that's helped with the podcast along the way has been great. You've been a great help as well. Inspiration to do it, all that good stuff as well. So check us out on Instagram, Bait Tank Podcast, Spotify is Bait Tank Podcast. There's links on the Instagram, and then Apple Podcasts as well. And shoot me a message. Tell me what you're fishing for. I want to hear what you guys are catching, and it's great to really connect with the listeners. And if I can be a helping hand, or if you're wondering what I'm fishing, what I'm doing, just shoot me a message, and I'd love to help out.
And gang, you can leave your messages right here on the platform. Drew's going to go through them here when we're done. All the things we missed. If we missed you, we apologize. We get a lot of comments. I get 30,000 comments a month, so I do the very best I can. Drew's going to jump on here and on YouTube and check it out and see the comments. And this podcast will be live, or will be available for everybody on Spotify, Apple, and Megaphone right after we're done. Elliot throws it up on there. So, Drew, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow in Dana Point.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dave. Take care.
Everybody, see ya. Have a great day. Remember, this is the only